Greetings and salutations, my flaming terrapins. It is I, the Torco Squire. And now the intro out of the way, let us begin. As the title suggests, we're going to be talking about Shaman King today. And Shaman King anime, the Shaman King 2020 reboot that was announced, and just a lot of things Shaman King related. I've got a list of topics to talk about. So the first topic I'm going to talk about is Shaman King video games and the future of Shaman King games. Because obviously, we know basically if a game's popular or a franchise is popular, then it's more than likely going to get a game because the company's going to try and get as much money out of it as humanly possible. And I don't think Shaman King is any different. They recently, I think, released a anime soccer or football game, depending on where you are in the world. And the anime that's based on is like really old. So, I mean, anything can happen really, but I do think with the popular Shaman King and basically how people reacted to it coming back with the 2021 reboot, that I do think during its run, we're going to be getting a video game. Like, I'm at least estimating one video game minimum. Like, in my personal opinion, I would probably say like 3 or 4 games within its entire run. So I'm going to talk about what games, well, the most popular game I believe that came out for Shaman King, and then I'm going to talk about what games more likely to come out, like realistically, and then probably end off the segment with games that I would personally like to see and why. Starting off, the most famous game I think anyone or everyone would know about would be Shaman King Battle of Spirit. It was a PS2 game. I believe 2 Game Boy games came out after it, but it was a console game and it was like the best out of all of them. So that game had kind of it was like a mix of a 2DS fighter. Oh, no, actually it was more of an arena fighter and a strategy RPG combined into one. So you have my vote in that. And it was fun. Obviously, I feel like if they remastered it, that could be an option for a game that would be coming. But definitely Battle of Spirits was fun. It took you through a decent... I don't think it took you through the entire anime or manga. But it did take you through certain parts, and it was good for what it was. I believe it was fully voice acted as well, or at least voice acted by the people that did the English dub of the 4Kids anime. And say what you want about 4Kids, just the fact alone that we have a Shaman King anime that was cool by any means is, you know, good in my books. Like, again, it didn't follow the manga almost at any point besides characters' names and Guardian Ghosts. But other than that, it was good. But moving on, Battle of Spirits was probably the most famous game for Shaman King. It came out on PS2. I've checked out a few streamers that have, you know, obviously streamed it and some that have made YouTube videos on it. And I'd say it was a fun game, but it's definitely dated. I don't think it's aged well. I think you can still get some fun out of it, but I don't think it's aged well. With that being said, we shall now move on to what games are more likely to come from a company, whether it be Bandai, From Software, God knows if Ubisoft made one. Imagine Yoa Sakura with an M16. I feel like one of the most realistic ones is a very simple game, which I'm not a fan of at all, and that would be a fighting game, like a Dragon Ball Z, like Dragon Ball Fighters. That game looks good. I'm not arguing with that. It looks amazing. Probably like the best looking anime game that's been out for like a while. Like, I think that anime game actually pushed its graphic detail and shit. But on the downside, it was boring. And all these people say like, oh, there's a high skill ceiling, you can do so much with the characters, it's not like boring at all. And for people that like the genre, that's like entirely true. But again, I don't like it, so again, I don't know, you should take everything I say with a grain of salt a little bit. I feel like there's nothing to a fighting game at all in terms of context, story, replayability. There's nothing to it. It's basically just it's a glorified cash and grab, like, oh god, like a lot of mobile games, to be fair. I feel like fighting games don't have a lot of replayability to them. Like, after you like get a main character down, a certain combo, or even like a cheap combo that can do like 80% damage and one goddamn move. After that, there's nothing more to it. There's no Easter eggs, no replayability, no secret areas, no secret stages. No really good character interactions. I will say Dragon Ball Z did have some funny moments with some people, but other than that, nothing really. Moving on, I do feel like the most likely Shaman King game to put in, just because of the roster of characters, kind of like the use of melee weapons is kind of the main thing. Swords, hand to hand, even a snowboard, thanks to Horo or Trey, depending on if you want the English name or the Japanese name. But I will be, you know, just so everyone's clarified in this stream and video, I'll just be referring to the characters as their English dub names from the show. So I'll be calling Horo Trey, I'll be calling Ren Len, Yo's the same, I'll be calling Choco Love Jarko. So, you know, Rio I think's the same, it's just Rio was spelt a little differently. Fighting game I feel is more likely, and it could be a decent fighting game. I don't know what kind of style they'd go for, but it'd probably be a decent fighting game. If it wasn't a fighting game, it would either be... Well, fighting games is kind of a used genre. I mean, multiplayer games could technically be classified as a fighting game, but I'm talking more or less like a 2D fighter, and if it isn't a 2D fighter, then it would be an arena fighter to some extent, like maybe a small arena, similar to how the battles took place in Battle of Spirits. Like, I don't know if we can find any goddamn gameplays or clips of actual fights in that show, but after you use the tactical grid to find your opponent, or your opponent finds you, you go into this small little, you know, arena where you can walk around it freely, but it's fairly small. I'd say arena fighter or 2D fighter is what's more likely to come out for Shaman King's first new game in 2020. I think that will be it for what games are more likely to come out, because I think anyone can predict what game is more than likely to come out. Obviously, anyone can predict what might happen. So now we'll move on to the segment about what games I'd like to see. What games I think Shaman King would meet quite well, or just what type of genres of games I feel would be very fun for me as a personal sense, and then maybe I'll talk about what, like, I feel a lot more people would enjoy. So first things first, it has to be a multiplayer game. Now, say what you want, some games have incredible story modes, incredible characters, everything like that, but to me, I buy a game solely if I can play with my friends or interact with other people and make new friends. You know, socializing on the internet, because obviously we can't socialize realistically anymore until, you know, the certain thing that's going on right now is all over. So doing it virtually is the next best thing, and multiplayer is the way to do that. Now, whether it would be a competitive game, I do not think that at all. I feel like Shaman King, just taking a page from, you know, Yo's book himself, it would be a very casual, laid-back game that you can have a lot of fun with. Who knows, maybe there'd be a lot of gag and joke characters and abilities, maybe some funny Easter eggs you could do. Maybe if you're playing as Jarko, you could crack a couple jokes in mid-battle, you know, that'd be fun. It has to be a multiplayer game, because multiplayer games are fun as hell. Because I just feel like multiplayer, and I'm not talking about multiplayer like fighting game multiplayer where you can only have like 2 people, or if you're having a ring match you can have 6 in Fighter's case, or you can play like an Injustice style and have King of the Hill, you can have like, I don't know, 10 different people in a lobby, and you're just waiting there, watching other people fight until you can fight, and then you probably get your butt kicked, and go back to the bottom of the list. So I just feel like you'd have more avenue, and the multiplayer I would probably select is, probably in terms of multiplayer, like PvP, I'd probably do just like the Shaman tournament, where it's not a really defined number, because I think in some matches it's 1v1s, 2v2s, 3v3s, I think more, but I think 3 was the cap. But I'd have it so certain matches would have a certain player limit. Like, I feel like the max player limit would be 4 or 5 for really big battles. Regular, like, battles, I'd have 3. Maybe for some special events, it would be like Tag Team Shaman or Solo Shaman. So just 1 and 2. But I'm also a fan of the games that have come out of late that have one team of survivors or players or warriors or anything have you, and then there's one enemy player who's like this super powerful OP monster. Like, 2 games that I feel like a lot of people will notice and understand will be Friday the 13th and Predator Hunting Grounds. You have a team of 4 military fire team members going against one predator, and in Friday the 13th you have Jason going against, I don't know, what was it, 6-7 campers. I don't remember. I haven't played Friday the 13th in a hot minute. Jason and the Predator all have these like supernatural strength, speed, horror abilities to teleport around the map, to climb trees, shoot laser cannons, and also I'm just integrating all of their abilities in there. Jason cannot shoot laser cannons and climb trees. I'm sure he can climb trees, but he doesn't shoot a laser cannon. Anyway, I like those kind of games, so maybe I'd have like a game mode similar to how, I guess if anyone here is a anime fan, then you probably have known of Dragon Ball Xenoverse. More likely Xenoverse 2, where they had these events where there was boss like raids. We had like Fuse the Master and stuff that had a crazy amount of health, and you and a certain amount of other players had to see if you could beat him or take off a certain amount of health in a certain amount of time. I would love that. Like the only one I can immediately think of is having a HAL like boss battle, like somebody gets to play as HAL with a crazy amount of Furyoku as his energy bar, his Guardian Ghost, the Spirit of Fire, which would be broken as all hell. Just stuff like that, really. And then maybe you could play as Yo, Len, Trey, Rio. Maybe you could even have Morty as a DLC character. I didn't even think about that, but having Morty with his shaman powers, with his laptop and his hammer, would be amazing as a DLC character, and again as a gag character, like but just as My Hero Academia 1 Justice 2 did when they added Mineta into the game. Like everyone was like, they can't be serious, really, they're adding Mineta over so many other characters. But it turns out he's a rather fun character. He's literally just a joke character. So moving on from just multiplayer and me trying to goddamn suss out game modes, that wasn't part of the plan, but hey ho, we'll roll with it. The next thing would be, it would have to have open world or semi-open world exploration, like the town that Yo and Morty kind of spend a decent part of the anime, and I think a decent part of the manga, like early on in that town of theirs. Like I would want you to be able to walk from Yo's house to the cemetery to the abandoned bowling alley that Rio and the Dead Enders check out and, you know, start hanging out in. Like I just want you to be able to like walk all that way without a loading screen, and maybe, you know, as you would go on, you could like find quick ways to get places. Like maybe you could actually take the train, you know, because Morty's always missing the train in the beginning of the anime episodes, which is hilarious. Semi-open world, I'd probably just have it as boundaries. Like the city would be one boundary. Oh, what is it? Dobie Village. Dobie Village would be another location that you could freely walk around in. The Shaman Coliseum or something would be a little different because that'd be a specific area just for shaman fights, so I don't think it would be huge, like a huge coliseum, but you also wouldn't be able to leave it during battles and stuff, and you wouldn't be able to go into it while exploring. Like the desert, Yo and that are in trying to find Gobi Village, and the town, like the desert and the town, I think should be in one area. Like you can walk through the desert, possibly, you know, die of dehydration, but then you could also find the village, find some rest stops. Yeah, but you could go to those different locations, and a full open world would probably just be like, you can just go anywhere at any point. Like if you're friends with Len, you could get his like family jet to fly you places, and maybe it's like a fast travel thing. This is the thing that I want with all anime games. It's not just the Shaman King game in general, but I want there to be a possible CAC, a created character. Now, again, I feel like you can have a CAC in just about any anime game, because realistically that could happen. Like in My Hero Academia, your CAC could just be a kid that attends UA at some point. In Sword Art Online, you're just a kid that bought the game and you just meet up with Kyoto and the gang. In Black Clover, you're a mage who just like gets lucky enough to join one of the squads, and you get like caught up in all the stuff that happens with the Black Balls and the Eye of the Midnight Sun. Digimon, Pokemon, kind of like the same thing. Like you don't have to be the main character in every single game. I know that sells, and a lot with the cover art, so I know why they do it. But I'm just saying, realistically, you could have a CSE in any game, and some games have done it poorly. So I understand why a lot of people say that's kind of a niche thing that they don't really want, because sometimes it can be handled really well, and sometimes it can be handled really poorly. Jump force, cough, cough, cough. So just like that. And the way I could probably see this CAC function working in in Shaman King game, basically, instead of like a startup, you might get a tutorial playing as Yo, maybe fighting Len as like a tutorial battle. Doing that, then it could incorporate your CAC to be like a shaman that's just arrived in town, or a shaman that's ready for the shaman tournament. So, and then after that, like, it could just do like a scene of a bus showing up or a train showing up in their town, and then it would just like the door opens, boom, character creation screen, you get to make him, and then it would show your character coming off the bus. Now, a game that really did character creation well, I would like to say, would be Dark Souls and Code Vein. Code Vein had so many options. You could make your character look like anybody, and it looked good too. Because I'm also a fan that incorporates your CAC into cutscenes. Like, they don't give you like a pre-rendered character. No, whatever armor you have on your character, whatever hairstyle you have, facial expressions, tattoos, that will show up in a cutscene. And obviously that takes a lot of work, because obviously depending on how many customization options you give the CAC, then there's so many different options you would have to code into the game to have each single one show up in a cutscene. So I understand that would be, you know, hard, obviously, but that's kind of what I appreciate. But anyway, moving on from that, because I probably could talk about CACs for a very long time, because it is literally like my #1 thing that I always want in anime video games. Probably the last thing I would want in terms of a Shaman King game, my preference, would be a crud ton of replayability, and that's obviously a niche thing, or a thing that can be interpreted in many different ways. For replayability, I would like a lot of side quests. Maybe after you finish the campaign, some what if scenarios would pop up, boss raids showing up every now and again. Multiplayer still gives a lot of replayability and like unlocks in multiplayer too. Like, I definitely feel like from Battle of Spirits they should keep the RPG elements. As you're going throughout the story and possibly the multiplayer, you can buff your Guardian Ghost and your Shaman. Because in Shaman King, it's not just the Guardian Ghost that does all the work, it's kind of like a 60-40, to be honest. The Shaman is kind of the one that has all the power. They have the Furyoku, they have like talismans, charms, anything like that. Some Shaman even know like jutsus, understand the elements, so they can use the elements like shoot fire, ice, water, everything like that, regardless of if their spirit has the ability to do that or not. The Guardian Ghost just allows the Shaman to channel their Furyoku into constructs, which are oversouls, and which I'll probably transition to in a second after I say my final thoughts about the whole game thing. The perfect game that I would want for a Shaman King game, I would say a game that was multiplayer focused. I'd probably say no campaign whatsoever. And even if there was a campaign, I would say it would be a campaign just for main story characters, so you could understand how each of their weapons work, how they use their Guardian Ghost. So when you have a CAC, you have an understanding of, oh, this is my favorite weapon, oh, this is my favorite type of ghost, you know, that kind of thing. But then in multiplayer, you have your CAC who you can physically rank up. Like, you can start the game at like base stats, or maybe you can pick some kind of class, just like Dark Souls. Like, maybe you want to be a shaman that uses talismans, a shaman that uses weapons, a shaman that uses traps, a large amount of variety. Like, as you like won games or even lost games, you get a little bit of XP, and you could boost certain stats. Like, you could boost the range of your Guardian Ghost, you could boost the defense of your Guardian Ghost, you could boost your knowledge in a certain technique. So maybe in level 1 of fire you could shoot a fireball, but maybe at like level 6 or 7 you could shoot just a fire stream from your hand, like flamethrower. And I would want multiple game modes, not just one, not just here's your team deathmatch kind of thing, because I hate it when anime multiplayer games have like just 1 or 2 game modes. I would want like a big team battle, a regular team battle, like duos, 1v1s. I would want a boss mode where like one player would play as Hal, or another extremely broken character from Shaman King with all the benefits, and they have to go against like 4 or 5 other actual players. So there'd be a player controlling Hal or Zeke. So that's what I would want. A lot of game modes, a lot of replayability, a lot of customization, character creation,
and it would have to be multiplayer focused, if not just entirely multiplayer on its own. And even if there was a campaign, I'd probably still want it to be a co-op campaign, because again, I buy games to play them with other people, not just to have a solo experience to then get rid of the game after I'm done. With that being said, I think I'll just end that off there.